Jefferson asks whether or not King George III has undertaken such a course of tyranny, and he said, "Let facts be submitted to a candid world." And so he then goes through the various grievances that the colonies have against England, goes on to say that we're not just wild-eyed revolutionaries. We have tried the olive branch petition. We have tried to negotiate. We have sent delegations to England to plead our cause, and we have been rebuffed on every turn. Therefore, because King George has demonstrated through his course of conduct that he is unfit to be the ruler of a free people, therefore these colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states.
Always, the framers' intent was to keep tyranny from the nation's door.
So John Stuart Mill, his ideas have had a profound influence on our system, he saw the tyranny of the majority as just as dangerous as the tyranny of a dictator. Our founders were very suspicious of democracy. The democratic culture was not as firmly in place. So two things were going on with the founders. One is a fear of a tyrant, George III, and the other was fear of mob rule.
Further work was needed in Liberty's document. Liberty is not only defined as freedom from tyranny, liberty is also freedom from servitude. The nation could only wear the badge of liberty if liberty was offered to all her sons.
If you want to have a discussion about liberty and what life is like when there is no liberty, you have to look at the life of Frederick Douglass, a man who was born into servitude. He was born into slavery in 1818. And this is a man who was born into slavery and ended his life as a statesman.
What part of the Constitution was important to Frederick Douglass?
The most important part, which says all men are created equal. It doesn't say all white men. It said all men. And also the 3/5 clause is a very important one.
The value of this national treasure is realized when the constitutional republic is compared to other forms of government.
So anarchist, on the one hand, as far as talking about a political movement, it's a contradiction in terms, really, because anarchists are anti-political. They believe in a lack of law and the absence of a significant state.
No other forms of government could hold a torch to the liberties and opportunities available to citizens within America's shores. It is liberty's beacon that lit the way for those enduring oppression to find a new home. Their stories are compelling.
Castro took over the government from and overthrew Batista, which was the actual president in Cuba, in 1959. And of course, he established his communist regime in Cuba at that time.
The effects of the transformation to a communist government are apparent.
Cuba today is a tragic country. That Castro inherited all the business of Cuba, that they were all very profitable. All the corporations, the railroad, the telephone, all the business in Cuba. More than 200 sugar mills in Cuba. Today, Cuba is fighting Haiti for being the most poor country in the world, in Latin America. Because of the government control, because the communists put ideology over know-how. Raul Castro just announced just recently that 1 million Cuban workers are going to be fired from their jobs because they cannot sustain them anymore. So they have squandered, like the prodigal son, all the resources. That's what the communists do.
Castro initiated the transformation immediately. The controlling tentacles of the government reached to all areas of society. Control of the next generation followed.
In the education system, he waited until 61. In other words, he waited 2 years. It was in April of 1961 that he nationalized all the schools in Cuba. Eventually, they changed the curriculum at all levels of education. the parents give up the education of their children.
Ever since I've become a citizen, which was in January 29 of 2009, I have always looked for opportunities for ways to be able to publicly say thank you to all Americans for giving me and my family a place that we can call home, and for giving me the freedom that so many women would love to replace their positions with me. And I'm just so thankful to be here in a country that allows me to cherish my femininity and not have to regret it like the way I used to when I was living in Afghanistan. We lived under the communism when we were in Afghanistan, and it was, you know, missiles and rockets and bomb explosions was a constant. Not to mention the Islamic aspect of the culture, which is pretty brutal in itself. Before there was any courts system, there was the Sharia law. So, but after it was influenced by the Western, you know, colonial powers, a lot of countries completely banned it altogether. For example, Turkey completely banned the Sharia laws. But with the recent explosion of extremists and their views and ideologies, it's sort of picking up its momentum again. These people are marching and the Capitol steps to Washington, D.C. and promising. They get on television promising that we are going to bring Sharia law to the doorsteps of America. If you want America to stay the way that our forefathers left it for us, if you want it to stay the way that it is for your children, you better stand up and do something about it. Don't just sit there and say that you don't agree with it. Do something about it. If you want America to stay the way that our forefathers left it for us, if you want it to stay the way that it is for your children, you better stand up and do something about it. Don't just sit there and say that you don't agree with it. Do something about it.
When we had that big meeting with Chamberlain and some of the other world leaders, Hitler came and he said, I'm not going to cause any war. I'm not going to cause any problems. All I want is for you to give us the mountain region, Sudetenland, because we have a German settlement living there. There was some discussion going on, and finally Chamberlain said, gentlemen, if this is all that he wants, let's just give it to him. Let's appease him. Let's give him that mountain region. And that was actually your beginning of the Second World War. Of course, before then, the atrocities with the Jewish people started. And the plan was, take that mountain region of Sudetenland, and I'll hop into Poland, and rest is history.
Eva's dominating emotion during her early life was fear, first under Nazism, then under communism.
Afraid to die, afraid to be hungry, afraid to lose my parents. My father had a Bible hidden in the rafters in the attic and a radio. Once a month, unbeknown to you, what time of day, what day, there would be a knock on the door. I mean a hard knock. You would open it up, and two Nazi officers in their uniforms and a German shepherd that was trained to attack. They would come in to go through your whole house looking for two things. I was so scared all this, and I knew what they were looking for, and I knew those two objects were up in the attic.
The Nazis withdrew after the war, and there was hope for the future.
My father built a factory that employed 25 people because he always wanted to be a free entrepreneur. Always. He had that nag. He was ahead of his time. And he built this, and it started flourishing fantastically. We started delivering our pastry all over Czechoslovakia.
After a brief hospitalization, Eva's father returned to his business, only to encounter the new oppression of communism.
He walks out of the hospital into his business. Somebody else was seated behind his desk. And my father said, "Who are you?" And that person said, "Well, I'm the commissar from the parliament. And Mr. Honolka, you're a capitalist. You own too much. We have a new co-op society. We're going to eliminate the middle class. There's no need having a middle class. We are going to be equal. We are going to share everything, and we're going to be equal. Your business has been confiscated. It now belongs to the state. You will be re-educated, and you can come back and be a manager of your business. But the way my father said, he said, I got up, and he said, I looked at him, and I said, never, and walked out.
The next day, as he walked in the park with his children, he was arrested.
We were caught. She went in the living room, told them there's a family escaping. They came in, hands up. The next day we were put on a cattle train with other people that were escaping. So we were in a cell, my mom and the 4 of us children were in a cell with 500 women and children. But this one time we went downstairs and we were close to the gates, and my mother looked at me and she said, Eva, the gate didn't click. She said, open it up, slip through it, put your clothes on. She pushed my brother out, then all of us got out, put on our clothes. Do I believe in miracles? You better believe it.
Living under the Constitution, the new citizens found liberty and safety. However, their stories alert us to the dangers if liberty should fail. Vigilance is the shield. The battle is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, and the brave. Liberty's battle today is not a revolution. The battle is a resolution. Resolution to vigilance. Resolution to action. And resolution to bravely pass our inheritance of liberty to the next generation.